This has been, without a doubt, the hardest video I've ever done. Not because it's necessarily hard to rank all the Mario games, but because this fucking video has been lingering in development hell for nearly 3 years. I've had this video planned since fucking 2020 for this series' 35th anniversary, but I kept putting it off for a multitude of reasons. But with the recent release of the Mario movie, I decided to finally take this damn video off of the back burner and make it. Also, just as like a heads up, I wrote this script before watching the Mario movie, but I'm recording it after watching it, and it's fine. 6 out of 10. The monkey! With that out of the way, however, Mario. There, intro done. I genuinely don't know how to introduce Mario in a way that hasn't been done millions of times before in other better videos. If you somehow don't know what Mario is, I'll give you a brief rundown of what this series is about. Fat Italian man rescues his Stockholm Syndrome Nog Gia from an evil turtle.
Yeah, but I don't even know you.
I rescued you!
Yeah, but you expect... What kind of Samaritan are you? You rescued me just so you could get with me?
Jesus Christ, I'm not asking you to suck on my dick. All I want is a kiss. Do you know what I went through to get here?
Ooh, you leaped a bunch of mushrooms. I'm so impressed.
Well, you're the one who got captured by mushrooms. I mean, how the fuck does that even happen?
Don't flip this.
I'm not. You got kidnapped by something that goes on a salad.
Okay, it's a little more complicated.
And yeah, his games are really good. In the original draft of my script, I wrote this really corny introduction giving the history I have with the Mario franchise, but no one gives a shit about that, let's be real. Yeah, I grew up with this series and all, as did 98% of the human population, but I want to disclose on the games that I played a lot as a kid to keep up the suspense for the ranking. Now, as a disclaimer for the ranking going forward, I am only ranking the mainline games, meaning any spin-offs like the Mario Kart Party or any of the RPG or sports games will not be included. So I apologize to anyone interested on where I would put fucking Mario's game gallery on the list. Though there is one exception to this rule, and you'll see what it is when I get to it. I do, however, want to give a very honorable mention to the first Wario Land. This game is absolutely fantastic, and it plays nothing like a Mario game, but that's what makes it great. I was originally going to put it on the list because of that pesky little subtitle of Mario Land 3, but unfortunately to it, Wikipedia doesn't have it listed as an official part of the Mario series, so I cannot include it. Though if anyone is wondering where I would put it on the list if it did count, it would be number 11. Anywho, I got 19 games to go through, so let's just jump right into it.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to a brand new video.
Before I reveal what this game is, I want to take you guys all the way back to December 2013. I had just come back from being in Florida with my parents for Christmas, and over there I bought an eShop card. Now, if you remember from my DSi War video, I was never able to get anything from the DSi shop, and I was not about to make the same mistake with my Wii U. I wanted to get as many games on that thing as I could, and when I was coming home, I was filled with anticipation to play Super Mario Bros. 3 for the first time. But if you recall, Super Mario Bros. 3 wouldn't be on the Wii U until the following year, so instead I got Super Mario Bros. 2. No, not that one, the other one. There we go. And to this day, I have never filled with so much immense disappointment when playing a video game. Well, that's not true. There was Mario Party 10 2 years later. Ugh. I'm of the opinion that there is no objectively bad mainline Mario game per se, but this one comes awfully close to crossing that line. Like, this game is charming in its own stupid way, but there's so much of it I don't like. Going from the games that perform this game's main gimmick so much better, like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and Super Mario 3D World, it never occurred to me just how forced and deprived the pluck and grub mechanic really is. Like, you can't kill enemies by stepping on them like every other Mario game. You have to pick them up and throw them, which is annoying because not only is it more time consuming and tedious, but there's really bad depth perception issues where I can't tell exactly the direction the enemy is going to land because of how inconsistent the physics are. In other words, skill issue. Speaking of physics, another thing I don't like about the game, Luigi. I hate the way he controls so much. His physics are so goddamn awful because his jump is so damn floaty. I hate it with every fiber of my being. Peach and Toad are fine, I guess, and with the more balanced nature, Mario really is the best character to play as, in my opinion. Plus, honestly, this is the one game out of the NES Mario lineage that I see myself going back to the least. Why would I ever want to play this game again? This game isn't really that good on its own, and any standout elements it has were done in other better games. In other words, this game doesn't interest me at all. It's boring. That being said though, there are elements of this game that I do enjoy. The soundtrack is really good. Hell, I'd even say this game's main theme is better than the main theme of the original Super Mario Bros. I enjoy this game's distinct art style and say that is the best and most visually appealing game out of all of the NES Mario lineage. It's so commendable how colorful this game actually is, giving the NES's notorious color limitations. Like, comparing this game to Mario 3 makes the dull desaturation and gray tint of that game all the more apparent. And I do appreciate this game in the long run for being the inspiration for other games to come out later down the pipeline. So even though I may not like this game, I still say that I'm happy it exists and encourage you to try it for yourself. Who knows, maybe you'd end up loving it. And tell me in the comments why I'm a fucking moron for not liking it.
My favorite time of the day. Breakfast and a little morning television.
Yoshi is cute.
No.
I really like Yoshi.
Wait.
Everybody really likes Yoshi.
Wait.
With that being said, Yoshi's Island and the entire Yoshi series sucks fucking big gorilla cock. I'm not gonna go too in depth in it here because I do plan to make a video on the entire Yoshi franchise in extreme depth and explain in excruciating detail why I hate it so much, but I'll briefly go over it here. Like, there is nothing objectively bad here, unless you want to count the fucking demonic shrieks from Baby Mario. Yoshi's Island Super Mario World 2 is objectively a good game. It's just so fucking boring. If there are any Kirby fans watching this, have any of you heard of the criticism surrounding the series that it's a little too cutesy and easy for some, and how the overall experience is so dull and uninteresting that it lulls them into a state of pure boredom? That's the Yoshi series. The storybook aesthetic coupled with the sweet music just makes me feel like taking a nap. Like, goddamn, holy fucking shit, this game may be a little too calming for its own good. Like, don't get the wrong idea, on their own these elements are phenomenal. Yoshi's Island is arguably one of the most gorgeous video games of the 16-bit era, and everyone who worked on this game should be immensely proud of themselves. I just for the life of me cannot get into any fucking Yoshi game I play because of how boring they all are. Especially that, like with Kirby games, I never feel challenged because of how easy the platforming is due to Yoshi's flutter jump. But at least to Kirby's credit, his games actually have legitimate substance to balance out the overly cutesy and easy exterior, like with the copy abilities, how his moveset gradually evolved into being more combat oriented as the series went on, etc. Yoshi isn't like that. This game is so boring that sometimes I deliberately run into an enemy so that Mario's banshee cry can wake my ass up. And there are some things I really like for example, Yoshi's moveset, the vehicle sections, and the bosses have some really cool moments, and honestly those are the only parts of the game that I can stay awake through, especially the final boss. Anyway, yeah, Yoshi's Island is an incredibly boring game, but I'd still rather play it as opposed to Mario USA because at least it's more structurally and sufficiently sound.
We've got to have money.
Back in the 1930s, there was a medical procedure that treated neurological disorders such as depression and schizophrenia in patients that was ever so growing in popularity. The procedure in question being the lobotomy. During a lobotomy, the prefrontal cortex is severed from the rest of the brain, and the results of the surgery vary from patient to patient. Some have died from the surgery from too many complications to count, or have died from suicide after it. Some were left permanently mentally handicapped, and there was the rare lucky one that was left mostly unscathed. The Soviet Union was the first country to ban the procedure due to its unsafe nature in the 1950s, and other countries followed suit, and by the 1970s, many countries had banned the practice of lobotomies, putting an end to its brief but dangerous legacy. But if for some reason you ever wanted to experience the feeling of getting a lobotomy, the best way for you to do so would be to play New Super Mario Bros. 2. In my very first draft of the script that I no longer have, I originally grouped all of the New Super Mario Bros. Games together because of how similar they all are, but then I realized how dumb that was for many reasons. Spoilers for later in the list, I guess, but I really do like the original New Super Mario Bros. For reasons other than nostalgia, I assure you. And grouping that along with this slop is giving that game a huge fucking slap in the face. I know that we live in the age of hyperbole where people have to exaggerate their opinions and thoughts to the most extreme extent to have people interact with them, but I honestly mean this with no exaggeration whatsoever when I say that New Super Mario Bros. 2 is one of the most nothing video games I have ever played in my entire life. This game is nothing, and thinking about it makes me actually mad because of how much of a wasted opportunity it is, but I'll get more into that in a moment. This game is incredibly generic from an artistic and level design standpoint, standpoint, no music in the game is original to it as far as I know. The stupid mini bosses in the towers are insulting because of how easy they are. And yes, I know they're a callback to Super Mario World. Shut up. Actually, all the bosses are pitiful here, but that's really an issue for a lot of Mario games, especially the new Super Mario Brothers games. The fact that this is the only game in the quadrilogy that doesn't have Bowser Jr. should speak volumes, but on top of that, I hate the forced Mario 3 nostalgia pandering. Like, Super Mario 3D Land just came out a year prior, whose whole identity is tied to the Tanuki suit. We don't need another game to do that too. Like, this game just makes me want to play Super Mario Brothers 3 instead, simply for being a better game and actually requires me to use my brain. You know what? No, fuck the raccoon and the Tanuki suits. What pisses me the hell off the most is the missed opportunity surrounding the abundance of coins. Like, really think about it. If Nintendo must force elements of a previous Mario game into this one, don't have it be Mario 3. Instead, have it be Super Mario Land 2. Think about it. Due to all the coins, you can easily have the main antagonist be Wario. Yeah, remember when he was an actual villain and not just some guy? Instead of forcing the Super Leaf in another game, you can instead have the main power-up be that goofy ass carrot. I mean, Rabbit and Raccoon Mario pretty much have the same function, albeit executed in a different way. And hell, you can even have this game take place in Sarasa Land and give it a much needed modern update. Like, I don't think Daisy has been in a mainline Mario game since, well, the original Super Mario Land. Like, have Wario hold Daisy hostage and force Mario and Luigi to collect a fuck ton of coins to pay off the ransom he's holding her for or some shit. Actually, better yet, have the game focus on Luigi and have Mario be the player too, and release the game in 2013 for the whole Year of Luigi thing. Now, like, we need a new Super Mario Brothers 2 in 2012 anyway, considering we would get another new Super Mario Brothers game later that year. I don't know, do something, anything rather than nothing. Like, that concept I just presented does more with the coin gimmick than anything this game does. You want to know what you get for collecting 1,000,000 coins? A different title scheme. Fuck you. Why are there coins everywhere if it doesn't correlate to the story or gameplay at all, apart from incredibly shallow power-ups that only last the longest a whole level? Because video game. Even though this game is generic garbage, it angers me more than any of these games because I can see the potential in the coin gimmick and the masterpiece this game could have clearly been, but this game is literally just nothing. I feel nothing but emptiness playing it, and it's a game I only play when I need a distraction for an hour and nothing else. Okay, I think I got my point across. Let's move on before my head explodes.
Now it's lost forever! Lost forever!
If you go into any video game fandom and ask people what is the worst game in that respective series, you're bound to get a mixed response depending on who you ask. What's the worst Sonic game? Some will say Sonic 06, others will say Sonic Boom, a few may even say Shadow, and then you have that one guy who says something weird like fucking Sonic Drift or some shit. Worst Zelda game? Wind Waker. Oh wait, now it's Twilight Princess. Wait, now it's Skyward Sword. Even though all of these are factually incorrect, the worst Zelda game is actually Majora's Mask. But with Mario fans, it's pretty much unanimously agreed on what the worst game of the series is. Yeah, there's a certain Mario game that many people hate for being dated gameplay wise and being quote unquote too hard, and I'm here to say that that game isn't as bad as everyone says it is, not even close. And that game, of course, is Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels. First off, is this game dated? Yes, of course it fucking is. This game came out in 1986. Did you really think it's going to hold up incredibly well by modern standards? Like, does the fact that you have to restart worlds from the very first level once you get a game over suck? Or how a lot of the game's challenge rides on you trusting the terrible physics enough to accurately judge how far you jump sucks? Yes, of course they suck. But if your reason for not liking it being that it's dated or too hard, I'm sorry, but actual skill issue. The game isn't bad, you're just bad at the game. Stop blaming video games for your lack of skill. That aside though, I really don't have much to say about the game itself. It's good for what it is, but it's so similar to the original that talking about Lost Levels itself kind of feels pointless, since all my thoughts in it go hand in hand with the original. The only reason why Lost Levels is so low on the list, despite me thinking it's an overall good game, is because of how derivative it is to the original. I don't even think Lost Levels is the hardest Mario game there is, let alone the hardest platformer of its era. If you think this is hard, play the NES Mega Man games. I'm sure you'll have a blast with those, fuckhead.
I did not care for
I want every single one of you to look deep inside yourselves and ask this very simple question. What's the most overrated video game of all time? Some of you may say Fortnite or Minecraft or any Sony game post Last of Us, but personally, I don't think any one of those games comes close to what I consider the most overrated video game of all time, and that game, of course, being Super Mario 64. Oh, were you expecting a fake out? That's nice.
I'm a jump scare.
I cannot stress enough how much unbridled rage I feel whenever someone ranked this game above Sunshine, Odyssey, World, Mario 3, and fucking Galaxy. What is it about this game that makes it special? And don't give me that bullshit saying you're nostalgia or, oh, it was revolutionary for this time. Man, shut the fuck up. This shit I'm about to take is fucking revolutionary, but I don't see people giving me the recognition I deserve. But like, I honestly do not understand the hype for Mario 64 whatsoever. There are only like 7 worlds that I actually like going to and don't find boring. Like, does anybody seriously jump for joy when they go to that stupid ass maze place? No, of course you don't, but you won't criticize it because you're fucking nostalgia blind. Most of the worlds are boring at best and fucking atrocious at worst. Like, Rainbow Ride is honestly, without any exaggeration, one of the worst stages I've ever played in a video game. Like, it's so fucking bad that it's incredible. It doesn't help that there are only like 10 or so tracks in the entire game, and they all get grading really fast, especially with how overplayed they are both during the game and since its release. Like, if I have to hear Slide again, I am going to fucking kill myself. Plus, I don't know if it's just me, but the overplaying of the same 10 tracks every so often gets some of the stages mixed up in my head. To this day, I confuse a Jolly Roger Bay and Dire Dire Docks. Though admittedly, there is one track I love, and that's the final boss theme. I love Oregon so much, and the final boss theme makes me fucking swoon. Actually, the best Bowser theme in the franchise, in my opinion. Wait, actually, that's another thing about Mario 64 that bothers me. The Bowser fights suck. Well, to be fair, they suck in a lot of games, but the Bowser fights in Mario 64 are so tedious and not fun. At least the Bowser fights in the new Super Mario Bros. Games are so pathetic that it's funny. Waiting for Bowser to do his slow ass attacks just to slowly build up momentum and throw him into a bomb and somehow miss when I perfectly aligned it sucks big dick. Actually, you know what? Fuck Bowser. All the bosses in Mario 64 sucks penis cock. I did not find out until recently that Big Bully is actually a boss, and I started laughing hysterically because it was so easy that I thought it was just a fucking regular ass enemy. Either that or the bosses are really unmemorable. Like, the only reason you remember King Babam or that stupid ass Thwomp were because of how pathetically easy they were and because they were so early on in the game. Though there was one exception to this, and that's the fight with the big ass hands in the period.
What?
But other than that, try to tell me a single boss from the game apart from the one that just mentioned that you remember. Yeah, you're having problems, aren't you? Well, that's because all the bosses are fucking terrible. Why the fuck do people love this stupid ass game so much? Like, there's so much of this game that just doesn't click with me, and I don't think ever will. Like, I fucking hate the flying cap so much. I think it's abhorrent to control, and I think at this point in the franchise, the flying power-up was getting redundant. The camera's pretty clunky, and the game just overall doesn't interest me in the same way that the other 3D Marios do. Why would I ever play this again when I have games that are more innovative and experimental with its setting and gameplay? I don't know. Super Mario 64 is an overall good game. I can admit that. The glitches are fun to exploit, the non-linear mission structure is pretty cool, and I really like Mario's versatile moveset, and I would really like to see it return in a future game. Plus, Peach's Castle is really well designed and fun to explore. There are some standout stages that I do like a lot, like Bomb Battlefield, Womp's Fortress, Lethal Lava Land, TikTok Clock, and Shifting Sandland. But to say that this is the cream of the crop in terms of the fat Italian man's games is honestly laughable, because while Super Mario 64 is a good game, that's all that really exists in my mind, and nothing more. Just a good old-fashioned 6 out of 10 experience. Oh, and if you're wondering what I think about Super Mario 64 DS, honestly, it's better than the original. Yeah, I said it. And if that bothers you,
well, how about next time you get a board that can handle the Neutron style? Later,
It's me, Mario.
this may sound weird and like I'm a fucking idiot, but hear me out. The original Super Mario Bros. Is kinda underrated. I know it's one of the most iconic and easily accessible games of all time, but do you really hear anybody talk about it in the same way as they do Galaxy, Odyssey, or that thing? No, of course you don't, because the only thing I hear when people talk about this game is its significant impact on the gaming industry.
Super Mario Bros. Continues to be regarded as one of the best video games ever made. It's a release that helped shape gaming as a medium and has been the central inspiration for thousands of games that followed. check out our most influential series on Mojo Plays.
And it gets really annoying. Nobody gives a shit about this game for what it is because of how far its successors have come, and it's been somewhat overshadowed over the years as a result, which is fair, don't get me wrong, but the original Super Mario Bros., it's still a very good game. In my eyes, the original Super Mario Bros. Is the best game in the series to speedrun. The endearingly simple level design, decent physics, and secrets galore all culminate into an experience that's not super in depth, but like I say all the time, not every game really has to be. I love this game simply for just being a fun time and infinitely replayable. Once I beat it, I'm just like, okay, let's go beat it again, but this time let me try doing it a little faster. Not only that, but it's also the little things that I really like the backgrounds and sound design. Sure, it's kind of primitive by today's standards, but I can't help but like it a lot regardless. It really stimulates my brain and puts me in a really happy mood. I don't even know what else there is to say. This game is just really good. You know it, I know it. It's Super Mario Bros. What more is there to say? You know, out of all the new Super Mario Bros. Games, New Super Mario Bros. Wii is the one I have the least to say about. Like seriously, what is there to say about this game? The force motion controls suck ass, same with the final boss fight, and I know you couldn't see the motion I did with my hands, but I put boss fight in quotes, as it's not so much a boss fight, but more of an endurance test to see how much of your patience will be tested during this tedious ass stage. The Koopalings are fun to see again, but the fights are embarrassing, especially if you have the propeller suit. Seriously, the propeller suit, as cool as it may be, is broken as hell. Also, I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I don't find the Wii mode at all comfortable to hold on its side. It feels more awkward than anything due to how slim it is, but that's not at the fault of the game itself, and more so the console it's on. But yeah, that about does it with all my problems with it. Yeah, the level design and art direction is incredibly basic, generic, and not memorable at all, but I can forgive it at this point in time, given that at this point, there were only 2 new Super Mario Bros. Games released, and the state 2D Mario was in at the time. There really isn't much this game does any different than the original. I literally had to search the fucking Mario wiki to see what there is to talk about, because like, there's nothing to talk about. I know I've been hammering that in this whole segment, but seriously, what the hell do you want me to say? Oh, it controls well and the multiplayer is fun. Bitch, that's all everyone ever says about this game, because that's all there is to say. Like what? Do you want me to talk about those stupid ass horde stages that appear on the world map? They're fine. The power-ups are fine. This game is fine. It's a perfectly fine, forgettable experience I will probably never think about again. Now let's move on to the games that are actually fun to talk about. Jesus freaking Christ.
Oh, Daisy, Daisy.
Yeah, that's right. I deadass ranked Super Mario Land above 64. What of it? Sure, this game is complete jank and hasn't aged well at all, but I don't know, I still like it a lot anyway. Like, this game has an indistinguishable charm that no other Mario game has since been able to replicate. Like, the game's flaws are a lot less egregious to me compared to all the other games on this list, because it was released on the Game Boy in 1989. Like, it'd be like bullying Pong. It can't help being the way it is. But yeah, in spite of its flaws like deceptively heavy physics and whatnot, this game is still really good. First off, let's do away with the elephant in the room. The game honestly looks really good. What, did you expect me to belittle how a game looks on Game Boy? It's Game Boy. Honestly, I think it's adorable how small the sprites are and how they just barely represent what they're supposed to be. Like, look at this Goomba. Come on, that's adorable. Plus, I like how different this game is compared to the rest of the series. The game doesn't take place in the Mushroom Kingdom, the main antagonist isn't Bowser, and you don't rescue Peach. Instead, you rescue Daisy from this really horny alien. It's really refreshing, honestly. Also, I love how this is the one and only game in the whole franchise that Daisy is in some sort of peril. Kinda like how she actually gives a shit about the state of her being and her kingdom, unlike Peach bitch ass. Plus, this game has unique quirks you won't find in any other Mario game, like fireballs dubbed super balls here. Laugh. It bounces all over the damn place. Is it annoying? Of course it fucking is, but I like it anyway. And the Koopas explode once you jump on them. Like, is that epic or what? Plus, like the original Super Mario Bros., this game is infinitely replayable because of how short and easily digestible it is. But unlike Super Mario Bros., this game has a bit more substance to it, despite it being significantly shorter. Like vehicle segments that are actually really fun and control better than you think. Too bad the stages are like 5 seconds long. Seriously, you blink and the stages are over. Also, I love the art direction this game is going for. It gives off the vibe that Sarasan Land is the Mario universe's equivalent to Egypt, and the art direction really immerses me in this world, despite the limitations of the Game Boy's hardware. Like, damn it, this game was incredibly charming and wonderful, and I feel like people don't give this game the credit it deserves because it came out on Game Boy. Well, I'm here to say that Super Mario Land is a good-ass game, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. I really do feel guilty ranking this game so high because New Super Mario Bros. U isn't anything special at all, but fuck me, I can't help but like it a lot anyway. And no, it's not because of nostalgia. I may have nostalgia for this game, but I also have nostalgia for Marvel Superhero Squad The Infinity Gauntlet on the DS, and I have no problem admitting that game is ass. So I wouldn't rank this game as high purely on that alone. But I prefer this game a lot more than the other New Super Mario Bros. Titles because its existence doesn't anger me like 2, nor does it leave me shrugging with how little substance it truly has like Wii. I just feel like this one has more to it than the other two. Like, for the first time in these games, the main power-up does not feel completely overpowered. Instead of flying, you glide down the levels. It adds nice balancing to it because it makes completing stages easier while not feeling broken as hell. Plus, it's nice to glide down the levels and you will get a little boost by pressing the back triggers, and performing the boost is so satisfying to me because of how big and bulky the Wii U gamepad's buttons are. Whenever people talk about this game in particular, I always hear them talk about the world map and how every place is connected seamlessly together. And yeah, while that's cool, it doesn't really add anything in the grand scheme of things to be all too significant. Same with the plot. Like, wow, instead of kidnapping her, Bowser takes her castle under his control. Wow, like, who gives a shit? I mean, to be fair, that opens the door to some pretty cool final levels and a badass rendition of Peach's castle theme from Mario 64. But in short, these are pretty neat additions that make this game differentiate itself from other installments, but not enough apart from that. Now, about the stuff about this game that's actually cool, Baby Yoshis. I didn't like them when I played this game as a kid because I thought their gimmicks were annoying, but now I think of them as the opposite. Their abilities are really fun and they offer some really nice variety in terms of how you want to play the game. My only real complaint with them is that it makes no sense how they follow you from level to level, but the adult Yoshis can't. Like, does anyone else find that strange? Personally, my favorite Baby Yoshi is the yellow one. It being a light source in the Boo houses is sweet, but this little bastard eats the fucking ghosts. Like, is that cool or what? Plus, all of them sing the theme of the stage you're playing, which immediately invalidates all negative criticism of this game. Apart from the story mode, you have these side modes like Boost Rush and Challenge Mode. They're here, they're fun, that's all I have to say about them. It's just more New Super Mario Bros. U but with added challenge. I will say though that Boost Rush is probably the funnest part of the whole game because of the adrenaline you feel trying to speedrun these courses with the stages still going faster and faster. Really good stuff. Personally, I feel like people don't give New Super Mario Bros. U enough credit simply because of when it came out, releasing too close to games that are so similar to it in terms of level design and general art style. But if we don't take just the game's generic elements into consideration and look at the game as a whole, you'll find that New Super Mario Bros. U is actually a really good game.
There's nothing on earth like the feeling of greed.
Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins is my favorite forgotten Mario game. Thank God it was recently put on Nintendo Switch Online so more people could experience it. How I first got to play the game was getting it on my 3DS with the extra money I had left on the eShop when I was making the DSiWare video, and honest to God, this game was incredible. First off, this game is a fucking technical achievement. Like, holy shit. Compared to the original, this game has improved sprites, backgrounds, and sound design. Like, goddamn, sprites, this detail came out on the Game Boy. This is SNES quality sprites, and the fact that it looks this good on this piece of shit is amazing. I know the more detailed sprites and backgrounds causes some slowdown on an actual Game Boy, but I've never played this game on an original model, so I wouldn't know, but let me know down below if any of you guys have experienced it. The physics and overall feel have improved a lot since the original too. Like, I know people hate hearing this criticism of older platformers, but the original Mario Land felt a little slippery, or at least for me. This game not only has more balanced physics, but it doesn't feel slippery at all for me, which is perfect. This game also has the most inventive and out-of-the-box set pieces in any 2D Mario game. One level could take place in a beehive, the next in a library, and another in a fucking whale. A whale, ladies and gentlemen. Plus, like Super Mario 64, this game has a non-linear narrative structure, meaning you can complete any of these worlds or zones in any order, which is great. And hot take, but the magic carrot is a better power-up than the Super Leaf, Cape Feather, Wing Cap, and basically every other flying Mario power-up. I'd say it's second to only the Red Star from Galaxy. Why would I make such a bold statement? Because it's really fun to use and doesn't control like ass. But above all of this game gave us Wario, the most epic character of all time. Though fortunately to it, unlike these poor souls, is that fans actually recognize this game's strengths and say it's one of the better Mario games, which thank fucking God that Mario fans have some standards. Some. Alright gamers, we're about to get into the top 10, which are games I consider to be not only some of the best platformers out there, but some of my favorite video games of all time. So let's see what those games are.
What are you, a rat, a squirrel, some kind of fat meerkat who thinks he's rad?
Super Mario 3D Land goes right up here with the aforementioned Poor Souls, as one of the more underappreciated and underrated games in the Mario lineage. I never hear anyone talk about this game or 3D World when they talk about 3D Mario. I guess if a game isn't sandboxy or a Galaxy game, it isn't worth being discussed fondly, which, to quote my Luigi's Mansion video, is shallow and stupid. Just because 3D Land has a more generic art style and simplistic level design doesn't mean it's deserving of the shaft. These types of levels and puzzles were designed entirely around the 3DS, so of course they weren't going to be fucking open-ended like 64 or Sunshine. And I'm of the opinion that the Galaxy games cannot work with standard controls. Like, playing these games with standard controls as opposed to motion controls feels wrong, and I fucking hate motion controls, so of course games like that won't work on the 3DS. That and the hardware of the 3DS wouldn't really be able to make something on par with Galaxy, or at least at the time of its launch. So a game like 3D Land makes sense. Personally, I feel like these kinds of stages work really well for this game, especially how they take full advantage of the 3DS's 3D to get a sense of depth for your jumps. Seriously, sometimes it's necessary to have your 3DS slider up in order to accurately judge where you're going to jump. Some people may think that as a negative, but I don't, because it actually takes advantage of the hardware of the system it's on in a really clever way. Plus, the levels in this game have a lot of gimmicks in them to keep the gameplay loop fresh and anything but repetitive, like the platforms that go by rhythm, the platforms that switch whenever you jump, the boo houses are always a treat, and how can we forget the iconic Zelda level? Despite that, however, I feel like I'm going to get a lot of flack for ranking this above 64, and honestly, I don't care. I will die on the hill that proclaims that 3D Land is better than 64, because at least 3D Land has Luigi. Oh shit, that's right! After you beat the main campaign, you get 8 special worlds, which means the game essentially doubles in length. Sure, they're all just remixed versions of the stages in the regular worlds, but I like it anyway. It's like new Super Luigi U, but I don't have to pay $30 extra for it, meaning it's better than the entirety of new Super Luigi U. Plus, 100% completion isn't anything nearly as egregious as Sunshine or 3D World. Like, I know, critically, you can tear 3D Land to shreds. It's basic, pitifully easy, and not memorable at all. But to me, it's all about the little things. The sound design, the music, fun new enemy designs, stage gimmicks, hell, even the geometry makes 3D Land one of my comfort games. Like new Super Mario Bros. U, I really do feel guilty ranking this game so high, but I love this game so much and I will never apologize for it.
The new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
I know I just had a whole spiel about feeling guilty about where I place some games, but I don't feel guilty about where I put this game on the list, because new Super Mario Bros. Is fucking awesome. It truly was and still is such a novel idea to implement Mario's movesets from the 3D games into a 2D one, and it truly works fucking wonders. The triple jump, the ground pound, the wall jump works wonders with the game's tight level design and creative enemy and boss fights. That's right, I said bosses. Are you as sick of the Koopa as I am? Well, play this game and it'll be like a fucking breath of fresh air to you, because I don't even know how to describe half of these bitches. Like, World 2's boss is some kind of fucking foreskin looking ass worm, and World 3's boss is some goofy fish. So there's some wild variety in terms of boss design. Now keep in mind, I said the designs are fun. I never said the fights were good. Like, I'd say the Bowser Jr. fights are definitely among the worst sub bosses in gaming history. It actually makes me angry how fucking horrible and lazy they are. And while on the topic of bosses, this game marks the first ever appearance of Dry Bowser, which is pretty neat. Also, I want to talk about the power-ups for a second, or power-up I should say, because the mini mushroom sucks and the mega mushroom is shallow. Sure, whatever. But damn it, I want to stick up for the blue shell here because I am sick and tired of people saying it controls bad. Bitch, no it doesn't. You're just stupid and have no idea what the hell you're doing. Literally all you have to do is time your jump right and control how hard you press the button for how high you jump. Literally that simple. And if you crouch, it protects you from enemies and projectiles. How can you not like the blue shell? I will defend it until the day I die. Actually the most underrated power-up in the franchise. The magic carrot and the red star are certainly more underappreciated, but the blue shell is certainly the most overhated. And of course, how can we forget the mini games? Sure, most of them are ripped right from Mario 64 DS, but who fucking cares? They're fun mini games and I'd rather have them here than nothing at all, because how can I be lonely and depressed when I have Luigi here to keep me company? There's the multiplayer mode, which I'm kinda mixed on. On one hand, I appreciate the creativity when creating this mode, where it's a competition between Mario and Luigi to see who would get the most stars. It can get really hectic and honest to god really exciting and fun as hell. But on the other, I was disappointed that I can't go through the campaign with a buddy. I mean, I understand why, but it's still a shame. Like, disregarding how unoriginal and derivative its sequels are, this game is fucking amazing. Out of all the games on this list, this one is my most replayed, and I don't think that's based purely on nostalgia. I have a lot of nostalgia for Yoshi's Island DS, and to this day I have never beaten that shit. But yeah, New Super Mario Bros. Is really good, and you should definitely revisit it.
Garfield, you fat cat. You are so big and fat. Why are you so fat?
Super Mario 3D World is an incredible ass game with a fucking banging ass soundtrack. Legit, the band they got to do the soundtrack went so fucking hard that it's mind fucking. Like, goddamn, this has to be one of the best OSTs in the whole goddamn franchise. It is masterful. The game itself is good too. This game is basically Mario USA but good. All 5 of the characters are insanely fun to use in their own special ways in spite of their shortcomings. Like, I still prefer to play as Mario, but I still acknowledge that the other characters are great as well. Like, anytime I would play a Ghost House stage, I'd probably pick Luigi. But you know what really does this game for me? How fucking creative and gorgeous the stages are. Like, this game has the best lighting effects in any Mario game. So many of the shots are colorful, gorgeously lit, and packed to the brim with detail. Oh god, this game is so fucking pretty. But the stages themselves are awesome. Sure, I don't really remember any of the names of them off the top of my head, apart from like Super Bell Hill or Mount Beanpole. But I remember what a lot of them were like. Like 3D Land, all the stages have super inventive and creative ideas that take advantage of the hardware of the system it's on, but it's ramped up to 11. Like the platforms where you gotta blow into the mic is kinda stinky, but it's a cute kinda stinky. I know people dog on the game for not having memorable levels, and I feel like they only say that because the art direction is generic. But looking at the stages themselves, they fucking rule. What are you talking about? Hand-on Hall, Footlight Lane, Red Hot Run, the Great Goal Pole, Double Cherry Pass, any of the levels with Plessy in it, just to name a few. I may have had to look up the names for all these levels, but they're amazing nonetheless. Like Footlight Lane, for example. It's a very treacherous stage because you never know if you're going to walk off to your death or not because the path is invisible, but you never feel too tense because of how serene the music and atmosphere is. I haven't even touched on the incredible power-ups yet. The cat suit is awesome. Your moveset is even more versatile with you being able to climb up walls and pounce on your enemies, making platforming way more interesting and crazy fun. The double cherry is jank, but it's a fun kind of jank. It's hell to control all these Marios at once, but the chaos is pretty endearing. The clear pipes are superfluous and doesn't add anything substantial at all, but I'd rather have them be here than the standard green warp pipes and have to wait 10 seconds for the scenic transition to play out. Though the reason the devs decided to add the clear pipes to the game was pretty funny.
I've always wondered, what's Mario up to while he's in there?
And I know everyone talks about this, but of course I have to dedicate some time to the epicness that is Meowser. It's Cat Bowser. If that's not epic, I don't know what is. Like, there's so much I can praise to death about this game that I can honestly make an entire video on 3D World in of itself because of how great it is. But rest assured that 3D World is a spectacular video game and one any so self-respecting Mario fan should try out.
By the far reaches of the galaxy,
Super Mario Galaxy 2 was a lot like Lost Levels, in the sense that because of its derivativeness to the original, I don't really have much to say about it, since most of my praises coincide with Galaxy 1. That being said though, I do have more to say about Galaxy 2 than I do Lost Levels, as this game has, well, more to it. For starters, Yoshi. I'm not too much of a fan of the point-and-click nature of the eating mechanic, but the game makes up for that in other ways, like the power-ups made specifically for Yoshi. The power-ups for Yoshi work really similarly to the baby Yoshis in New Super Mario Bros. U, in the sense that the abilities are kinda insignificant and somewhat shallow, but still charming. Plus, the Galaxy 2 does some things worse than the original, like the story. One of the things I adored about the original was how serious the tone was that gave the game the epic feeling it had. Galaxy 2, by comparison, doesn't have that. Like, the opening cutscene is a complete joke. Bowser's dialogue is on the same level of goofiness as the CDI games, which has its own appeal, don't get me wrong, but it's still a bit underwhelming. Plus, the game's structure and level design is a lot more linear, which I'm also kinda mixed on. Plus, the spring mushroom is still trash, but I swear to god, this fucking game is a masterpiece. Even with all these minor flaws, which I cannot stress enough are minor, this is still a Galaxy game. The game is still packed to the brim with endless amounts of creativity and whimsy, where I have no problem saying that this and Galaxy 1 has the greatest level design and stage designs in any video game. Plus, even though the spring mushroom sucks ass, Galaxy 2 makes up for it with this, the Cloud Flower, one of the greatest power-ups in the whole franchise, with you being able to make your own platforms out of clouds. Dude, I love Cloud Mario so much, and I would love to see it return in a future game. Definitely in my top 5 favorite power-ups. In short, even though I consider this game to be inferior to the original, I wouldn't call it a bad game by any means. Chances are that if you love Galaxy 1, you will certainly love Galaxy 2 as well, and vice versa. I remember last year when people on Twitter were saying that Super Mario Odyssey is a lot worse than people remember, and I feel like the reasons for saying that are dumb. Oh, Odyssey feels more bloated because of all the moves feel disconnected, and there are too many there for me to care. Like, that's kind of the idea for there to be so many moons. The whole point to there being so many moons is for the player to get moons that best correlate for their playstyle. Like, spoilers for later, but my biggest problem with Sunshine is that the game requires you to collect every fucking shine sprite in all 8 of the stages in order for you to get to Redacted Mountain. It sucks so much, especially with how tedious some of the missions are. Odyssey isn't like that. Some of the moons require you doing platforming challenges, some require you to go out of your way to explore the area you're in, others require you to take advantage of a specific capture ability, others are incredibly tedious minigames. Regardless, the way to get the moons are incredibly varied, fun, and makes each playthrough of this game different from the last, which is something I can't really say about any other 3D Mario except maybe 64 in the Galaxy games. And this game isn't perfect, don't get the wrong idea. A lot of the kingdoms are either underwhelming or fucking painfully unutilized. Like the Cloud Moon and especially the Ruined Kingdom are spectacular concepts to have in the game, and it sucks dick how small and little things there are to do in these places. Plus, there are some Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon levels of pace breaking, with the Odyssey getting fucked up halfway through the game and you have to search for moons to fix it, which isn't great. Plus, considering the game's narrative hinges on the wedding of Bowser and Peach, Bowser Jr. getting the shaft is really fucking disappointing. But despite all of that, Super Mario Odyssey is a fantastic video game. For every step backwards this game takes, it takes like fucking 3 steps forward. All the different ways to collect moons are amazing. Mario's moveset is the most varied and nimble and parkour based that has ever been in the whole franchise, and goddamn, it fucks hard. The different captures Mario can be are fucking awesome. You can be a Bullet Bill, a tank, Bowser himself, and a motherfucking T-Rex. This is the moment humanity was building towards. This is our peak as a species. And then there's Odyssey's most iconic feature, the costumes. Odyssey's Mario model is the only one in the franchise to have nipples, and we as a society just have to live with that fact. I usually hate forced nostalgia pandering, but even I can't help but revel in the fact that you can dress up and look like N64 Mario. And the bosses, holy sweet mother, the bosses. I've been pretty mean towards Mario Mario bosses in this video, but Odyssey has some of the best bosses in the entire fucking franchise. It's so refreshing to have bosses in a Mario game with actual mechanics and patterns and not just dodge projectiles and jump on their head like 3 times. Though this game has its fair share of those suckish fights too. And keep in mind that none of them are difficult in the slightest, but goddamn are they something special. Like, would you ever expect a boss like this in a fucking Mario game? Plus the Bowser fights are some of the most thematically intense and mechanically deep in any Mario game since like Galaxy. Basically, you can criticize a fair amount of stuff Odyssey does, but you can't sit there and tell me there isn't a lot to love and appreciate about it.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
Remember when I was talking about Lost Levels, and I said that I didn't think it was the hardest Mario game? Yeah, Super Mario Bros. 3. I remember when I was a kid, the airship stages used to whoop my ass. But that's probably because I was a dumbass kid who didn't know how to play video games. Yeah, I finally got Super Mario Bros. 3 the day it launched on the Wii U eShop. Was it worth the wait and suffering through Mario USA? Well, if it's this high on the list, what do you think? If I could define Mario 3 in one word, it would be classic. Playing this game so closely to all the other ones, and it's shocking how much of an impact it truly had on the franchise as a whole. It was the first game with the Koopalings, airship levels, the Super Leaf, this asshole, and most importantly, the world map. People give the new Super Mario Bros. U map a ton of credit for simply being interconnected with each world seamlessly, but honestly, I don't think they give the Mario 3 map enough credit. The layout is cool, each world has an incredibly detailed and pretty design, especially for its time. It's packed to the brim with mini games, one where you have to match 3 items in a row, one where you have to match carts together, toad houses where you get items, and these really gay Hammer Bro interjections. And the map isn't perfect, don't get me wrong. The fact that you can't go back to other worlds and replay levels is immensely disappointing, but there's still loads of value to the game outside of the levels. As for the levels themselves, hot damn are they good as hell. As previously mentioned, Mario 3 is, in my opinion, the most difficult Mario game to date. The airship levels have that trademark NES bullshit where cannons and bullet bills are flying in all directions, but unlike most games from the NES era, while the difficulty stems from many of the obstacles being in cheap placements, it all seems fair since they're considerably easy to avoid, or at least to me considering how many times I've played this shit over the years. But if you're playing this game now, be expected to die a few times. And now for the power-ups. Personally, I was never too much of a fan of Raccoon or Tanuki Mario, having to build up momentum in order to fly his equality and concept, and can be satisfying enough to pull off, but I don't think the level design complements the power-up's ability too much with how condensed it all is. Though Tanuki Mario has a slight advantage over Raccoon Mario for me, with the stone ability, which was robbed from us in 3D Land kinda sorta. But you already know about those power-ups well enough. What about the power-ups that never returned? Do you hate water levels as much as I do? Do you wish they could be controlled bearably? Well, now they can with the frog suit. The frog suit is incredible. It makes water levels actually fun, and you gain a higher jump, which is always a treat. Though if you want to be technical, the frog suit did kind of come back in spirit with the ability to capture a frog in Odyssey. Though you want to know which power-up isn't so lucky? The Hammer Bro suit. Hammer Bros fucking sucks, and it feels so damn good to hit those bastards back with the same hammers they throw at you. Sure, it's just another variant of the Fire Flower, but it's a really good variant. In 3D Land though, we get the introduction of the Boomerang suit. I hate the Boomerang suit. But do you know what the greatest thing about this game is? The fact that it is canonically a play. I think I got my point across now. Super Mario Bros. 3 truly is a fine wine because it hasn't aged a single bit in the 35 years since its release, and if anything, has gotten even better with time.
Ah, the sea. So mysterious, so beautiful, so wet.
Man, this one hurts. I would love nothing more than to rank this game number 1 because I adore every single thing about it, but I can't realistically rank it number 1 because of how significant its one and only flaw is. Regardless, I love Super Mario Sunshine. You know, I can at least understand why some people may not like Lost Levels. The game can be cheap at times, and there are some elements that don't hold up the best. I don't think that justifies vitriolically hating the game to the extent that Mario fans do, but I can at least understand why the game itself might not be everyone's cup of tea. I don't, for the life of me, understand why Mario fans hate Sunshine. Well, to be fair, Sunshine is probably the boldest Mario game to date, as it deviates from the typical Mario design philosophy more than any of the games on this list, but that's what's so unique about it. It's so experimental with its gameplay, setting, and even world building additions, and I can't help but adore it all. Like, for example, the story. The story is one of the best in the whole series. Sure, it involves the tired old trope of Peach dumbass getting nabbed, but there's some added plot and lore to keep it interesting and adding emotional depth, like the debut of one of the greatest video game characters of all time, Shadow Mario. Dude, I love Bowser Jr. so much. Even though he's a little bastard that tried to get Mario arrested, his motivation for doing what he does is just so heartbreaking yet wholesome. I can't bring myself to hate him at all because of how pure of a character he is, and I'd argue he has more of a presence in the game than Bowser himself does. Plus, Nintendo, give him the magic brush back. Come on. Flood is amazing in this game as well, and is definitely my favorite companion in any 3D Mario game. I was never too fond of Cappy as a character, and Baby Luma certainly exists. The way Flood controls and enhances combat and platforming is absolutely phenomenal. The game doesn't have Odyssey levels of parkour, but Mario's moveset in the game is still nothing to scoff at. It's still very versatile, and the various nozzles for Flood greatly enhances the parkour and platforming elements. Sure, not all the nozzles are winners, like I can live without the rocket nozzle, but I wouldn't call any of them bad by any means. The only real complaint that I have, apart from the one that I mentioned back in the Odyssey segment, is that I wish the game had somewhat of a lock-on feature, kinda like the Souls games. Like last year, I got pretty big into Elden Ring and had no fucking idea how much I wanted a lock-on feature to my games until I had it. Aiming isn't the best here, in my opinion, because I can never get a proper sense of depth no matter what angle the camera is on, so I feel like the addition of a lock-on feature would greatly help in that regard. But despite that tiny little flaw, Flood is absolutely magnificent and adds tons of value, depth, and strategy to an already fantastic game. Now, as for the setting, holy sweet mother of God, the setting. I fucking love Isle Delfino so goddamn much. I don't want to go super in detail about this because I actually plan to make a long as hell review slash love letter to this game one day. That's honestly why I'm so happy to finally have this ranking done, because I can finally make that video on Sunshine. But yeah, Isle Delfino is great. It's such a beautiful, charming, and warm environment that automatically puts me in a happy mood. Sometimes I turn this game on just to roam around and jump around the main hub because of how fucking marvelous the atmosphere is. Hell, it's been scientifically proven that simply playing only 20 minutes of this game increased pro-social behavior in people, while Crash Twinsanity increased anti-social behavior in people. And yes, this is real. I mean, to be fair, I'd hate Society 2 if I were forced to play any post-warped Crash games, except Boom Bang. That one's a certified hood classic. And of course, like all good Mario games do, Yoshi makes a playable appearance, and you can make him vomit the fruit you fed him in order to get him to hatch. I swear to God, it's not as fucked up as it sounds. Even the music has subtle changes to it when you play as Yoshi. Come on, man, why do people dislike this game so much? It's clear so much love was poured into this one, and one of these days, I will make a gigantic love letter to it in form of a long-ass review and analysis on it. But until then, Sunshine remains in my heart as not only one of the greatest Mario games ever made, but one of the greatest games I've ever played.
I think you mean Wonderland!
Okay, so for context of this next segment, I know I sort of explained this in part 1, but I still feel like it's worth reiterating for this segment. I wrote about like 99.9% of this script in like February or March of 2023, long before Mario Wonder was announced, let alone released. And I didn't feel like rewriting and re-recording this entire fucking 20+ page script to accommodate for it. Hell, I didn't even feel like writing a segment for this game in particular, because making this ranking was a lot harder than you think. So instead, I'm going to be reading the review of this game I wrote on Backlogged when I initially finished it back in October. Enjoy! Sonic Superstars left such a bitter taste in my mouth. It was such a miserable experience, and it was such a fucking god-awful time. I didn't even finish it because of the terrible way it made me feel. Once I did not think a single video game could make me feel whole again. Then this came out. First off, this goes without saying, this is the most gorgeous the Mario universe has ever looked in a video game. The art direction is so spontaneously beautiful. Its usage of the pastel colors gave this game a very storybooky vibe to it that I adored. Plus, the character models had this really quite squishy, almost toy-like look to them that makes this game stick out the most visually out of every other Mario game. But that's just the game on a superficial level. What about how it plays? If it wasn't for Galaxy, I would say this has the best level design out of any game in the franchise, both 2D and 3D. The level design, while admittedly standard for what you'd expect from a Mario game, has a lot of stage gimmicks that are kind of reliant on enemies, which is one of the few legitimate criticisms I have of the game. Goes off the fucking chain when you get the Wonder Flowers. This game is not afraid to throw you for a loop with its change in gameplay and setting, and I adore that so much. In one stage, you may be floating through the sky, taking the form of jelly, running on walls, and even being in a goddamn music video, just to name a few. Plus, unlike 3D World, the different characters all play the same, so the level design doesn't have to compensate for it, which I deeply appreciate. I can gush about this game and what makes it a masterpiece for hours. I love how this game is basically a giant love letter to fans without it coming off as obnoxious. For once in a piece of media, I got a sense of joy and love for seeing references to other Mario games because they don't come off as cynical. They come off as a loving tribute to the entire series. Like, was anyone expecting the Cosmic clones to make an appearance? What can I say, man? This game is immaculate. I'm not sure if it's in my top 3 favorite Mario games, but it's certainly in my top 5. Easy 9.5 out of 10. If you're a Switch owner, this is a game you need. Dinosaur! Whenever someone asks me what I think peak 2D Mario is, Super Mario World is the game I go to immediately. Sure, it doesn't have the fluidity and better overall movement of new Super Mario Bros. DS, but it more than makes up for it in literally everything else. This marks the first ever appearance of Yoshi, and sure, he doesn't have the flutter jump that was introduced in Yoshi's Island, or the imagery of Mario with a gun, but he's still great. His weight is perfect, and he has some pretty interesting mechanics unique to Mario World. Like, if you eat a certain Koopa and press B, he either spits fire or fucking flies. And despite coming out in 1990, it still looks absolutely gorgeous today. The colors are vibrant and saturated. The colors really pop in this game just as much as Sunshine does. It's so fucking beautiful. The backgrounds also make the environments pop ever so much, especially with how detailed they are. And that's only one of the pluses to the levels. So many of them are such a blast to go through because of how many fun gimmicks they introduce, how many secrets there are to find, and how bumping the music is. Oh shit, that's right, yeah, the music! The music in Super Mario World is the definition of a bop, and certainly unique compared to all the other Mario OSTs throughout the years. Like, the soundtracks of the new Super Mario Bros. Games blend in with each other in an incredibly underwhelming way. Mario World isn't like that. It definitely has its own unique bump. I can't accurately describe what makes the music in Mario World click for me and so many people, but it just makes me want to dance every time I listen to it. Now, as for the power-ups, you know you got the mainstay, Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, etc. But we have one new power-up in the game, the Caped Feather. The Caped Feather is awesome. It's basically the Super Leaf, but all my problems are fixed. It doesn't take nearly as much momentum to take off, and the level design complements it more than Mario 3 does to Super Leaf. Flying is a lot better to control, and you get this badass dive attack where Mario throws all of his fat ass weight on those unfortunate enough to be in his path. But even the Caped Feather pales in comparison to the objectively best power-up in video game history, the P-Balloon. Did you ever think Mario could get any fatter than he already is? Well, in this game he can, and it has no right being as fucking sexy as it is. The P-Balloon alone makes Mario World a 10 out of 10 experience. What can I say? Super Mario World just has it all. Fantastic level design, tons of secrets, extra levels galore, great power-ups, perfect physics, Yoshi, and the fucking P-Balloon. How can you not say this is peak 2D Mario? Super Mario World is not just a spectacular video game, not just a kick-ass Mario game, but perfectly stands the test of time and exists in my mind as one of the best platformers ever made. Literally, what do you want me to say? Super Mario Galaxy is not only one of the greatest video games ever made, but it's my second video game of all time, surpassed by that one game where you throw fucking turnips at bugs. I would love to make a video or a long ass segment in this video about Galaxy, but literally what the fuck can I possibly say about this genuine triumph that hasn't already been said? Nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. So instead of saying what everyone and their mother have said about this game that you already know about, I'm just going to go into my personal experience with Galaxy, because at the end of the day, this is my video and I can do whatever the hell I feel like. If you want an actual review of Galaxy, there's like a bajillion of them on YouTube that you can freely look up. I genuinely feel like there's nothing more I can add that isn't already common knowledge, but I'm getting off track here. It's Christmas 2009 and my mom gets my dad a copy of Mario Galaxy because we had this obscure console that came out during that time that may or may not have been a phenomenon, but who the hell cares about that? At At the time, I was familiar with Mario, but not too knowledgeable of the franchise. Like I said in my Dark Moon review, I would have watched my dad and sister play Luigi's Mansion or Super Mario Sunshine on her GameCube, and would occasionally play Mario 6 and 7 with her. And earlier that year, I contracted new Super Mario Bros. DS for my DSi, but all in all, I was still a newbie to the Mario series. And need I remind you, this was the late 2000s, so I was a dumb kid who actually thought becoming an astronaut was a viable, obtainable goal. Yes, that's why my old room was decked out with space stuff, for anyone who knows me that might be watching. But once again, I'm getting off track. So in my mind, my dad just got this brand new spanking video game that not only was a part of a series I was getting more and more into, but was also in a setting I was incredibly hyperfixated on at the time. Well, now I gotta see what it's about, and seeing and playing this game for myself changed my life. I know that sounds melodramatic, like a game starring this goofy ass looking dude with type 2 diabetes in space changed your life? Yes it did. I instantly fell in love with and adored every single aspect of this game. So many of the game's galaxies stuck with me so many years later and have impacted me as a person and inspired me to use my own creativity in a profession I'm passionate about, simply because of how beautifully creative and full of whimsy the galaxies are. I can name so many of the galaxies off the top of my head because of how memorable they all are. Gusty Garden, Battle Rock, Space Junk, Honey Hive, Beach Bug, and Toy Time Galaxy, just to name a few. Hell, even for galaxies I absolutely despise, like Sling Pod or Loop-de-Loop Galaxy, I can admit they are incredibly well designed and creative. And the music, again, if anyone who's watching this knows me, knows my favorite genre of music is classical. Yeah, I'm that kind of guy. And this game is mostly to blame for that. The Galaxy soundtrack is my favorite soundtrack in any piece of media ever. It is absolutely magnificent. There are people that I know who don't give a shit about orchestrated music, yet love the Galaxy's music as much as I do. In fact, everyone who's watching this, leave this video right now and listen to the Galaxy soundtrack. I promise you, you won't regret it. And that's only scratching the surface of every single thing this game gets right. If I were to go into specific details from everything from how amazing and satisfying the controls are, how expertly the motion controls were integrated, and how I don't think this game would work with button controls, or how spectacular the bosses are, or how both stories of this game are great, both tonally and thematically, we would be here for hours. Bottom line is that Super Mario Galaxy is a legitimate masterpiece, and I don't use that term lightly. When I say a piece of media is unironically a masterpiece, I mean it. When I say Breaking Bad is a masterpiece, I mean it. When I say Mob Psycho was a masterpiece, I mean it. And when I say Super Mario Galaxy is a masterpiece, I mean it. I love, adore, and appreciate this game to death, and I will never get tired of replaying and revisiting it. Super Mario Galaxy is more than just a video game. Super Mario Galaxy is an experience, a wonderful, ethereal experience that every self-respecting video game lover should play at least once. But even Mario Galaxy pales in comparison to the true best Mario game, and that of course is Super Mario Run.